to the Let's Talk Crypto podcast, where we discuss the latest Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset news.
Hey everybody, hope you're all well. Today we have a very interesting discussion with a visitor to Mauritius. His name is Frisco d'Anconia. He is originally from Ghana, but considers himself a citizen of the world and doesn't want to be tied down to a specific geographic location. He's recently been traveling throughout the countries in Africa using only cryptocurrency and has been trying to educate people on the potential of cryptocurrency and blockchain in their respective countries. I do apologize for at times poor quality audio, but we tried our best to resolve it and we still wanted to bring it through to you. Without wasting any more time, let's get right to it. Frisco, welcome to Mauritius. Why don't we get started? You should tell us a little bit about yourself, give the audience a brief introduction about who you are and where you come from.
Okay, hello. So my name is Frisco d'Anconia. That is what I'm calling the blockchain crypto world. I'm a blockchain and crypto writer, and I've written for journals like the Coin Telegraph, Crypto Coin News, Brave New Coin, and a couple of others. And I am currently the managing editor of Qubit Times. Since 2016, I've been traveling through Africa, promoting blockchain technologies and writing about its technology, and trying to live solely on cryptocurrencies.
Okay, very interesting. And where are you from, Frisco? Where in Africa?
Originally, I'm from Ghana, but now I am like a stateless nomad with no country by choice.
That's interesting. And your citizenship is from Ghana, though? That's where you were born?
Yeah, but I don't believe in citizenship. I think it's something, as a libertarian anarchist, I believe that is like calling yourself a slave. I don't want to be controlled by any government, and moving from one place to another place limits government's control over my life and my property. That's
very interesting. So not only do you believe in borderless money, you believe in borderless citizenship. So
exactly.
You're basically a citizen of planet Earth.
Thank you.
Welcome to planet Earth.
Thank you so much.
Are you the ambassador then for planet Earth?
I'm actually an ambassador for Satoshi Nakamoto's brainchild.
Great. Okay. Well, we've got you on here today. You're in Mauritius. That's how we met. You are currently at the FinTech Hub in Mauritius in Eben, Saba City. And we wanted to pick your brain and find out a bit more about what's going on behind the scenes in Africa with regards to cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and blockchain. And we're hoping that you can give us a bit of insight into what's happening in the trenches. Let's start off with Ghana. I know that you are borderless, but that is where you originally came from, and you've got a lot more insight into what's happening on the crypto scene there than we do. What is the current state of cryptocurrency and blockchain in Ghana?
Quite interesting. So way back in 2011, I was running the Liberty and Entrepreneurship camps for young people to understand the wealth and poverty of nations and also learn skills about starting their own businesses instead of trying to look for non-existing jobs. So I can boldly say I was the first person who started blockchain and crypto education in Ghana way back in 2011.
Wow.
Since I left Ghana in 2016, it has been picking up, but there are a bit of skepticism around crypto and blockchain in Ghana. And I think they are not scaling up education for that. But recently, there was a very interesting development. The legislature in Ghana actually asked the central bank to update their regulation, their financial regulations, in order to have regulation for cryptocurrencies. And one particular member of parliament is very, very bullish about cryptocurrencies and praised the fact that it can be a great tool for the unbanked in the country. Most of the members of parliament were skeptic about it and were like, it's a total scam and it's not controlled by a central authority. But at the end of the day, they all agreed that, that was just this April, they all agreed that there should be a regulation to kind of guide how people deal and hold cryptocurrencies, and also how the government will be able to tax them. So I think moving forward, if the crypto community in Ghana is able to reach out to these state apparatus, they will be able to have a very thriving environment for blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
Okay, that's very interesting. And would you say that one of the main challenges is education, getting people to understand what Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is and what it can do for them? Or do you think that it's more on the legislation side?
I've been to 18 Africa countries since I started this journey in 2016. And I think the biggest challenge, as you said, is education, not regulation. Not regulation, I thought, because before regulation, people need to understand this so that they can actually inform the regulations that are going to come out of these state apparatus. Because if the people don't understand the whole concept and the whole technology, politicians will end up giving them a very horrible policies and regulation that will end up to ruin the whole thing, the whole ecosystem for them in these countries. Education is very important, and that is what is lacking in most of the countries I've been to, almost all of them.
Since you've brought it up, what are some of the other countries that you've traveled to, and what are the most interesting in terms of cryptocurrency and blockchain within Africa? I
think the most interesting part is countries like Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Botswana somehow, Tanzania, and then Cameroon. These countries, I think, are basically where you can have a strong communities and where cryptocurrencies are actually being used, and there's a lot of buzz around it and activities all the time. It is very interesting to see that every week there is a blockchain event going on in Kenya, for instance, in Nairobi.
When you say in Nairobi, Kenya, there's a Bitcoin or blockchain meetup, is it well attended?
Well attended. I've spoken at about 5 different events there, and I think I've not seen like less than 50 people coming for events that side. It's very, very interesting.
The people that are attending, are they at a very new sort of level of understanding and they're looking to find out more? Or are you finding that there's quite some advanced usage of cryptocurrency?
You find both. You find both of beginners and those who are advanced in it and advocating it and are holding cryptocurrencies and are dying for more ideas and more projects to get involved. It's very interesting that side. And I spoke at events in Nigeria, for instance. It looks like most of them are newcomers getting into the space and a few advanced ones. But it's very interesting to see a lot of people who are in the ecosystem for some time now and are advanced, like developers, like holders, like people running organizations in Kenya.
And how does it compare to South Africa? Because quite often South Africa is borderline more first world than it is sort of a developing country. And perhaps it's got more critical mass in terms of cryptocurrencies. Did you see a difference or is it much of the same?
The difference between South Africa and all these countries trying to get into the space or are in the space and advancing it for Africa is that South Africa has got merchant acceptance. Kenya, there was nowhere I could spend my crypto. There's only one place outside Kenya called Njeri. There's a lady running a restaurant called Betty Restaurant where they accept cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Dash. That is the only place you can find merchant adopter. But go down south in South Africa, thousands of merchants accept crypto.
There's a lot of places you can use your cryptocurrency. What exactly are people using cryptocurrency for in these other African countries then? If they can't spend it as easily as you can in South Africa or in a more sort of advanced country, what are they doing with the crypto?
In Nigeria, for instance, I found out that people are holding cryptocurrencies to escape the prevalent inflation. I think a couple of years ago, the country's inflation was up to 70%. Most people are like holding it as a store of value, as a hedge against inflation. In countries like Kenya, people see it as a form of savings, like the same thing as store of value. In Zimbabwe, it is very interesting. I actually stayed in Zimbabwe for more than 1 year and even started an exchange there before the ban came, and then I left for Rwanda. I was living there and traveling around and used the country as my base. It's very interesting. Zimbabwe has no money, no currency of their own. And a lot of people,
Zimbabwe currency was worthless at one stage, and I think they don't even print them anymore.
No, if you can have one note that is like $100 trillion Zimbabwean dollars, and it can buy just a loaf of bread, you can imagine it's worthless. So are using different kind of fiat money like the US dollars, the rand, the Botswana pula.
So like Zimbabwe is like a shining example of why we need Bitcoin.
Exactly how government mismanage our money, and you need to teach fiat.
Yes, exactly.
You need to short the banks and long crypto.
When you go around a place like Zimbabwe, if I had to approach 10 people and say, do you know what Bitcoin is? How many out of the 10 might say yes?
You might not even find one person telling you yes.
Really?
But there's a particular group of people like business people and young people who are into cryptocurrencies. Some are using it as a store of value. Most people are using it to do cross-border trading. And that is what most Africans are using Bitcoin for.
But it sounds to me that if we had to go around Africa, that we would find the more affluent, the more sort of well-off, or the person not at the bottom of the ladder, but the person sort of in the middle ladder, middle stage or higher, who's got a bit of disposable income and is able to buy or trade cryptocurrency. They will know about it, but it's not really helping the people who are sort of in poverty or right at the bottom of the ladder.
Not accurately at all, because I in Kenya, like there's a group of there's an organization that is using crypto as a form of micro saving, and in Zimbabwe, I found women association who were doing savings, crypto Bitcoin saving, encouraging each other to buy a little amount they can buy every month to hold for the future. And it's very interesting. I mean, shops, supermarkets are ordering their stuff from South Africa with crypto. I personally bought a car from Japan with cryptocurrency from this thing, B-Forward. And there were a lot of merchants who were always in need of cryptocurrencies to import stuff from outside. It's not accurate that the middle class or the rich are basically involved in this. And a lot of young people who are looking for a better future are also getting involved on a daily basis. I used to run meetups and events under my Africa Blockchain Universities around in most of these countries, and it wasn't just the rich or the middle class who were attended, but you find a lot of poor people who believe that they can change their lives with cryptocurrencies.
Okay, no, that's good to hear. Bitcoin's probably used as a dollar substitute for international trade. Like you said, you bought a car, you brought it in from Japan.
It's expensive to get hold of the US dollar in Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Because they have no currencies and they have to depend on the dollar. You have to buy the dollar at the black market at 50% higher with mobile money. So if I need $100, I have to pay $150 in mobile money and then get a paper US dollar note for $100. So you always pay 50% more to get that.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, so it's not easy to get the US dollar.
And I suppose people like freelancers who do work online and offer their services internationally, it must be very convenient for them to use cryptocurrency, because in some of these places, PayPal doesn't work. You don't have access to online merchant payment services. In those examples, like writers, graphic designers, website developers, they must really be benefiting from the use of cryptocurrency.
That is Kenya for you. I've not seen more freelancers in any other country than in Kenya.
Okay.
Most young people are depending on the internet to get jobs. In the absence of, there's a huge unemployment rate in that country, and not that country alone, but in most African countries. And most young people in Kenya depends on the internet to get a job, and most of them are getting paid in cryptocurrencies. And I think that is part of the reason why they have got a strong community in that country, because most of the young people working as writers, graphic designers, developers, and so on and so forth are getting paid in crypto.
Which is interesting, because if you think about it, in a lot of the more developed countries, first world countries, people are probably leaning more towards buying their cryptocurrencies. So they're going onto a platform and they're buying it, whether it's local Bitcoins or they're going onto a platform like Coinbase, CryptoFish, or something like that, and they're actually buying it. They're taking dollars and buying their cryptocurrency, and then maybe trading in and out of different types of cryptocurrency, maybe from Bitcoin to Ethereum to Litecoin or something else, trading back and forth. Whereas what you're telling me is if we go into Africa, a lot of people are actually working and being entrepreneurial and trying to figure out ways to actually earn the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that is what I'm even doing. I don't earn any kind of money except crypto. And I've been living on crypto since I left home in 2017 to go crypto vagabond. It's basically what most young people, is a source of livelihood for most young people now. So for some young people now in Africa, they depend on cryptocurrencies to earn a living. They work for cryptocurrencies. I work for journals, blockchain journals, and I work for blockchain projects.
Yes.
And they pay me in crypto.
And I'm sure that suits you. You don't have to worry about moving your money from a bank account to bank account, from country to country. You're not worried about credit cards and debit cards. You've got your keys and you've got your money with you.
Exactly. And I control it and nobody can stop me. But there are some challenges living on crypto too, because the infrastructure for blockchain in Africa is not that well developed in most countries. I can easily get fiat from a BTM or Bitcoin ATM in South Africa, or I can easily access exchanges at my fingertips or from my laptop, and then I can get funds on my mobile wallet. But in some countries, you go there and you realize that they don't have an exchange there, and people use peer-to-peer and some informal means to change cryptocurrencies.
For example, which countries have you used peer-to-peer, and what was the experience like?
Right here in Mauritius, I have to depend on peer-to-peer. Okay. In countries like Rwanda, I have to use, there's no formal, exchange at the moment. So I have to use local Bitcoin.
Okay.
Or sometimes in peer-to-peer, guys who are amazingly honest. You've never met him anywhere. You can send your crypto to him and you get your money on your mobile wallet.
Yes.
And you can spend it at anywhere. There are countries, in most countries in Africa, you can pay for anything at supermarkets, at the gas station, at the market, even at the ordinary market, open African markets. You can pay with your mobile wallet.
That's correct.
So, yeah, a lot of countries has no exchanges. Like I was in Botswana, I used to depend on these peer-to-peer exchanges. In countries like Cameroon, in the Congo, so many of these African countries. But if you go to countries like Nigeria, Zimbabwe has got also nice exchanges. and Kenya, for instance, has got like 4 formal exchanges where they can do what you call bank transfer if you exchange or your mobile wallet. I always find it very nice. Exactly. I always find it very great to deal with this peer-to-peer guy. For instance, when I was coming to Mauritius, I came from Rwanda and I was in transit for 24 hours in Nairobi. At the airport, I just called one of these peer-to-peer guys I've been dealing with anytime I'm in Nairobi, and I sent him Bitcoin, and within 20 minutes, I had M-Pesa on my Kenyan number, and I cashed it out at the airport and changed the money into fiat.
Okay. I have heard of BitPesa and M-Pesa and a few of the other sort of solutions out there, and I believe they're very popular in places like Kenya, Nigeria, and surrounding countries. And I've always wondered what they use it for, but you say they use it in markets, they use it everywhere that you would normally use cash, right?
You can even save on your mobile with M-Pesa. You can save, you can borrow. It's very interesting. Yeah, these are some of the things that can actually make cryptocurrencies actually scale and thrive very well in Africa.
But do you think that M-Pesa or BitPesa is competing with like Bitcoin, or do you see it as complementary?
I think it's complementary in some way, because there's no way they can compete with crypto. There's nothing like, it is not a value or a store of value. It is just fiat.
Okay.
On your mobile.
Just transactional.
Yeah, transactional.
So you would keep your money in Bitcoin and then you would convert it only when you need to actually transact. You would convert it to the currency in M-Pesa or BitPesa and settle the merchant, whether it's at a market, a store, or if you're catching a bus or whatever it might be.
Precisely. I think what we should push very aggressively in Africa is merchant acceptance. Because in countries like Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana, if you push merchant acceptance aggressively, and then we get merchants who are accepting crypto, it will be very helpful for the people, because the communities in these countries are growing.
Yes.
And they need to be able to use their crypto without exchanging it into fiat.
I think that onboarding actual merchant services for Bitcoin or any of the top cryptocurrencies is fairly simple. And there's a lot of open source software that one can use and implement on mobile phones, just very much the same way that you would with a lot of these mobile money solutions.
Exactly.
But the real challenge is the education, to get people to understand how it works, what it is, to trust it. And I think the other issue that you have is even if you did get a lot of merchants to accept it, you would still need at some point a way to offboard from crypto back to the currency. So I think that would still need to be in place. But as you say, it's growing very quickly. And I'm sure that there must be a lot of savvy people out there working on solutions to alleviate the demand. I was going to ask now, Suyash, what about Mauritius? So Frisco's here in Mauritius and he's a crypto traveler. He's only using Bitcoin and other cryptos to survive. And now he arrives here and he wants to buy or settle or convert into fiat. There's nowhere for him to exchange. Are there no viable services here in terms of exchanges in Mauritius?
The more I hear Frisco talk about the other countries, all of these countries are African countries, but there's so much difference in the way people deal with cryptocurrencies in terms of the use cases, like how Frisco mentioned that people actually work and get paid in crypto, which is very different in Mauritius. And this is why I believe Frisco and people like Frisco, when they come to Mauritius, have this expectation that it might be very similar to other countries, but we have some limitations in Mauritius. And one of the reasons I believe is the population, because Mauritius is a very small country when we compare it with other African countries like Zimbabwe and Nigeria and so on. So the level of adoption is going fast for a small country like Mauritius, but compared to other countries, it's not fast enough. And yes, I think recently Frisco was talking about me and he needed to convert Bitcoin to fiat and he was having a lot of difficulties. And in Mauritius, we do have very limited options to exchange, for example, any kind of crypto to fiat. I think the most well-known, the most popular one would be local Bitcoins. But apart from this, there is a lot of different options. There might be like peer-to-peer exchanges or like unstructured exchanges where we convert it from individuals. But that is also very, very rare. But I think that in the long run, what will happen, hopefully, is that all these countries, all these African countries will kind of merge in terms of the technology, okay, and achieve like a very level playing field in terms of crypto.
I would have hesitated to guess that one of the reasons why Mauritius might not have the same level of adoption, albeit it is a small country, is because it has got quite an advanced financial sector and banking system in place. And you probably find that the level of banked people within the population, the percentage must be very, very high. Whereas if you go throughout Africa, I presume, Frisco, that if we had to look at the statistics, that there must be a lot of unbanked people who just don't have access to finances that we are all used to in other countries.
Yeah, about 77% of Africans are not banked for so many reasons. Most of them don't have the documentations to kind of qualify for a bank account. The banks are far away from where most of them are living. Some don't even have the identification to get that. And there are few titles in Africa because of the cumbersome process of getting titles, and the address system are non-existent in many countries. So many Africans, in fact, some of them will never have a bank account their entire life.
I was going to say that you probably find a lot of Africans will have a crypto wallet one day, if they haven't already, before they ever get a bank account. They will completely leapfrog the banking system, much in the same way with mobile phones.
Exactly.
A lot of the developed world had
landlines
and used landlines, correct. And a lot of African population haven't had access to that, but they no longer need it. No. They're going straight onto mobile phones.
I think my daughters will never use the banks. They will never have a bank account in their life. They are going straight to crypto and have their crypto bank account on their cell phones and all their devices down too. Because I think by the time they are mature to manage their own finances, there will be enough infrastructure out there for them to be able to order anything from the world from their mobile phone with their crypto.
Look at how far we've come already, just in a few years.
Yeah.
it was nearly impossible to do a lot of the things that we do now in terms of cryptocurrency. It was always a challenge, even if you weren't only dealing in Africa, to get verified on an exchange. It was always a challenge to sell crypto on the exchange and then get the fiat transferred back to your bank account. I remember doing it and always holding my breath for 3-4 days, sometimes even a week, with my fingers crossed, hoping that I would actually get the money. Now we just take that for granted. All the new users now, there's so many options. I'm talking more on an international level, but that's where it starts. You have to get it right in the developed countries and the places where there's good governance and systems in place. And it's working so well now. It won't be long before that trickle down to Africa will happen. But I'm looking more to know whether Africa is going to come out with their own innovations in terms of exchanges or use cases for Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain, and how it can help not only just from the money perspective in terms of actual store of value and transfer of wealth, but in terms of solutions to some of the challenges that Africa itself faces.
I think that has already started. You look at Cryptofish. Yeah, you look at Cryptofish. Goddess went for an ICO last year to raise funds for an exchange that can also function as a remittance system for people to remit money to Africa and out of Africa. There are exchanges like Kubiti, Kra, Africa-wide. There are a lot of projects coming up in Africa that are actually building the infrastructure for the final take-off of the blockchain revolution in Africa. So I think we are already there. It might be slow, but I met some young Nigerians building a very great platform to, provide billing services on the blockchain using cryptocurrencies. I met some guys in Botswana who are building a voting system on the blockchain. I met some guys in Kenya who are also using the blockchain to kind of solve problems like you need something like cross-border trading, sort of, or settle payment of cross-border trading in the African region.
Although Mauritius doesn't have the established sort of infrastructure for exchanges and the transactions between fiat and Bitcoin, for example, there is a lot of innovation coming out of Mauritius, and they are taking a lot of steps forward to try and foster growth and encourage innovation. You guys are sitting right now at the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub, which has been put together to get like-minded people on board and developing interesting and innovative stuff. Could you tell us a bit more about that, Suyash? And also, maybe you could mention one or two of the interesting projects that's being born out of Mauritius.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a step backwards. I've been an entrepreneur since 5 years in Mauritius. Unfortunately, I'm a citizen of Mauritius and not yet a citizen of the world as Frisco is, but hopefully in the future. But in Mauritius, since 5 years, I've seen that there has been a lot of development, and at the same time, Bitcoin and blockchain ecosystem started to develop in Mauritius. And it developed really quickly. Right now, in the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub, which was created with the idea of having members in the different financial sector in Mauritius to come together, create an ecosystem, and then come out with innovative solutions. And not only for Mauritius, but actually for the whole African continent. And this is a very nice initiative in the sense that I get to meet various people in different sectors, not only in the financial sector, some people in the crowdfunding sector, and then other startups in the banking sector. And these different startups and companies create a nice ecosystem where you can share ideas and further your network. Frisco is one example because he came here, we had a very fruitful talk in our last meetup, and it's nice to share these ideas. So basically, initiatives like the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub create this ecosystem where new projects develop. One of these projects, I will give you examples of two projects which are currently members. The first one is Funkis, which is a crowd lending platform. It's a Mauritian startup. It's a crowd lending platform. And the idea behind is to democratize a bit the lending economy here in Mauritius. And they're also planning to go to other countries, to other African countries with the same model. The second one is another project called Horizon Africa, of which I'm also a member. Horizon Africa is a new blockchain which was created to cater for different kind of need in African countries. Because the idea behind this is that we hear a lot of development from countries outside Africa in the blockchain and crypto sector. And although like technologies like Bitcoin and Ethereum has been around for quite some years, there is a large gap in the way these technologies reach people in Africa. The people may be individuals or businesses. So there's a large gap, and this gap is partly explained by the lack of education, like Frisco mentioned at the start of this session. There's a large educational gap when talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And this is what Horizon Africa is trying to bridge, providing education, providing training, and going one step further, providing tactical training about how to build blockchain application. So these two startups like give an idea of the different types of startups that are growing here in Mauritius, and having the Mauritius Africa FinTech Hub and similar initiatives at the back where you can build on their network and on their expertise. There's another project called Storage Plus. Basically, the idea behind Storage Plus is to use the blockchain to ensure the integrity of documents. This is a very nice use case actually, because a lot of banks and companies in the financial sector, they are a bit like reluctant to use third-party vendors to store their documents and all the confidential information. And the use of blockchain to ensure that these information are genuine or authentic, hasn't been tampered with, is a value-added service to these companies. And based on the blockchain technology, they can offer like let's say the guarantee that the information hasn't been tampered, they are still confidential, and offer all the, let's say, peace of mind to these companies in the financial sector. But I think that, as usual, I would say that the regulators are catching up to the fast pace of development in the crypto and blockchain sector. But the good thing is that things are moving, albeit slowly, but they are still moving. Like recently we had a communique from the FSC. The FSC is the Financial Services Commission. They are the regulators in Mauritius for all financial related aspects, business aspects. So they recently sent out a communique about security tokens, and this was really nice because it was actually a very new let's say new technology out there, but they saw that a lot of companies were coming to Mauritius, trying to establish their business in Mauritius, and they were looking for information about STOs and security tokens. And so they came forward in like a few months and sent out a communique about the legality of it and how to proceed if you have such an like a business need. And the fact is that they are moving towards the adoption of the blockchain technology, at least for now, and hopefully in the future the adoption of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And what is happening also is that this is very interesting, is that Mauritius is kind of partnering with other countries, other African countries, because they know that cryptocurrency and blockchain is gaining new markets every single day. So they need to catch up. And what they are doing is they are partnering with other countries, other regulators, and trying to come up with some standards that they can set to facilitate like exchanges, to facilitate businesses between these different countries. And this is quite interesting because it not only helps in the blockchain and Bitcoins and cryptocurrency sector, but instead it creates new market opportunities for startups here in Mauritius to actually go to other countries and like sell their own services and products. And this is quite encouraging for local startups.
Frisco, out of all the countries that you've traveled to, and there's quite a few now within Africa, has cryptocurrency or Bitcoin been banned or made illegal in any of them?
Sub-Saharan Africa, it is only in Ethiopia where you can be jailed for mining or holding crypto. And in Northern Africa, it is very terrible. In countries like Egypt and Tunisia, they treat crypto like narcotic drugs. The revolution was moving very well in Morocco until recently the government ignorantly also banned cryptocurrencies there. So in North Africa, it's the most dangerous place to go and talk about cryptocurrency. But Sub-Saharan Africa, the government, the central bank will just come out and say people should be cautious. They have not approved of crypto. And if you deal in it and you get duped, it is all up to you. You can't complain to the government or whatever. But there isn't a complete ban of of cryptocurrencies. But in Ethiopia, you can't even mention the word crypto or Bitcoin there. I tried to run a meetup there and people were like, dude, be very careful you don't get arrested. So I left disappointed.
Wow. Okay. So it's not really accessible to quite a few African countries, then it sounds like it. Or if you do deal or talk about cryptocurrencies, you risk getting arrested or maybe even worse.
Yeah, it's only in Ethiopia, in Sub-Saharan Africa. And then in North Africa, I think it's not a place to go talking about crypto. Most of the people dealing in crypto are doing it underground. It was thriving very well in Morocco until recently. And there were even some coins that were coming out of Morocco with local developers developing their own coin that side. But the government ignorantly came out and banned crypto. Like the central bank was like, it would be illegal to hold crypto or deal in crypto. But the younger generation were actually pushing crypto so well that side. I remember being in a WhatsApp group that had about 5,000 people in that group of cryptorians and blockchain believers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is the state of mining in Africa? Is there a big mining?
Electricity is very expensive in Africa. So very few places that you find mining in a commercial form. But in Kenya, I met a young, interesting guy who was once interviewed by the CNBC and other international news outlets. And this guy, Eugene Mutai, he is mining crypto in a commercial level, not just only Bitcoin, but other coins like Dash and others. And it's very interesting. But because of the energy problem in Africa, you don't find a lot of people and even companies dealing in crypto. I think about 2 years ago, there was a company in Nigeria that was like, they are going to mine crypto. And I was laughing at them because Nigeria is one of the places where there's a chronic problem with electricity. The supply of electricity is epileptic.
Do you think that cryptocurrencies helps with corruption? Because sometimes Africa, fairly or unfairly, gets tarnished with the brush of being a corrupt place to do business. Governments are corrupt. Do you think that a Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptocurrency can help with that?
I think this is how you can eliminate corruption, because we are talking about something that everyone can trace and verify with every transaction. So blockchain and cryptocurrencies is the opportunity for Africans to actually eliminate corruption or minimize corruption. Recently, I think in Nigeria, I was discussing with younger people about how you can advocate for African governments placing their budgets on the blockchain so that everyone can verify how they spend these monies, and using IoT system, you can monitor all the projects they are running with these funds from the budget. So it's an opportunity for Africa to minimize corruption, not actually the opposite.
And where to next after Mauritius, Frisco?
I as a nomad, I don't actually know, because it's like when my visa is expiring, then I move to another place. I'm thinking of going to Comoros or Reunion or Maldives. I'm just thinking of spending some time in the Indian Ocean, Palago for some time, maybe for 6 months or 7 months, and decide to find a base where I can use to travel around the continent, to keep traveling around the continent, because as at now, it seems I'm losing my base in Rwanda after leaving Zimbabwe to be in Rwanda for almost a year. This month is exactly a year I moved to Rwanda. That it looks like I'm losing that base. So I will get to know where is my next destination in the next coming days or month, because I have up to July for my visa to expire this side. I will make that decision in the coming days where to go to, but I'm sure of staying in the Indian Ocean archipelagos for some time, for probably half a year, and decide to find another base I can actually stay and continue my life as a crypto vagabond.
What will that be? A few months now that you'll be here? You're obviously working on some local projects, some things that are keeping you busy here.
So I'll be speaking at some couple of meetups, and I'm still looking up to invitations to speak at various places. And I'm hoping to work with any local project that invites me. But now I am working with the DX team, the DUCOP team here. I'm a fellow there, which is part of the Africa FinTech Hub, and I'm learning a lot of things from them, and I'm hoping to also pay my dues for the opportunity they gave me to be here. Forward to do a lot of interviews with blockchain and FinTech community here. So if anyone is listening to this podcast and is interested in having an interview with me, they can always reach out to you or follow me on Twitter.
Give us your Twitter address and other places where they can find you.
Oh, so they can easily find me at the FinTech Hub with the DUCOP team, or they can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @CryptoTraveler1. They can also get me on email, cryptotraveler1@gmail.com. Yeah, basically.
And the websites they can catch you?
Okay, so the website is, they can also get in touch with us on the qubittimes.com website or the africablockchainuniversity.com.me website.
You call it university. What services does it offer? Is it mainly just education through free learning, or is it formal courses, or does it set up conferences? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's all around education, conferences, various events, and then policy advocacy. We've been doing those things around the continent. I've done trainings for merchants in Nigeria. I've trained young people in Zimbabwe. I've done meetups in Kenya. I train young people in Cameroon in entrepreneurship and cryptocurrencies. I ran some other projects in Ghana last summer and a whole lot of other places. And we are writing some policy papers to help some governments who want to regulate the sector. Because most of these bureaucrats do not understand what this blockchain idea is about. They all say that something that has no central control is dangerous. So we want to reach out to all these people with policy papers and run advocacy events for central banks and legislators, basically doing a better job of understanding and running good policies around the space.
Here's the question. Where do you see Bitcoin and blockchain adoption going over the next few years within Africa?
I believe that for me, Bitcoin will be much more prevalent in businesses. That is, I expect more businesses to start accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Actually, when Frisco mentioned about the fact that a lot of freelancers are already accepting Bitcoin as a way of payment, that is a tremendous boost forward for real businesses to start accepting Bitcoin. And that will be a great thing to wait for.
I think the ecosystem is going to get bigger and bigger as African governments continue to, mess up with the monetary system. A lot of people would discover how they are going to have a lot of freedom, monetary freedom, and financial inclusion with blockchain and cryptocurrencies.
That brings us to the end of our podcast today. I hope that everybody's enjoyed it. It's great to get a bit of insight into what's happening in the cryptocurrency and blockchain space in Africa. We hope to be bringing you some new exciting guests over the coming weeks. If you have the time, please take a moment to like or share with your friends, or leave us a comment and let us know what you think of the show. Until next time, thank you for listening to another episode of Let's Talk Crypto.